A domain model is not about entities, value objects, and aggregates. Well, actually, it is about domain objects and their relationships, but that's not the whole story. More importantly, a domain model is about reducing complexity in your software. And no, you don't need to adopt domain-driven design for that. In this video, I'll explain what a domain model is, why you need one, and how to create and implement it step by step. Let's start by defining domain. The domain is the area of the real world a software aims to solve a problem in. Therefore, we often refer to it as the problem space. It's important to understand that the domain does not represent everything in the real-world area, but it is constrained by the context and perspective relevant to the software. Now, what is a domain model? A domain model is a conceptual model of the domain. It is a structured visual representation of the domain's key objects, their relationships, and their behavior. It uses the domain's natural language and does not include any technical aspects of the software. From that definition, one purpose stands out. A domain model visually structures the problem space and increases clarity. To be correct and complete, the domain model has to be created together with the domain experts and will then be reviewed by all technical and non-technical stakeholders in a project. By doing this, it becomes a central artifact that ensures consistent naming of domain objects and relationships. That makes the domain model an important communication tool for everyone. It simplifies discussions and avoids misunderstandings. We can verify system behavior by checking it against the model. And when grooming new features, we can test for consistency with the model. A domain model also helps us write better requirements. Without a domain model, requirements can easily evolve into a long list of unrelated scenarios. They are hard to keep consistent, conflicts are easy to miss, and every detail has to be clarified explicitly. With a domain model, requirements are derived from the model as specializations of it. Clarification becomes easier and conflicts are easier to spot because we check against the model, not just against each other. Of course there will be exceptions, but we can handle those easily if we keep them rare. A domain model is not only a diagram, we realize it in the software as well. That ensures consistent naming not only in discussions and documents, but also in code. It acts as a conceptual backbone of the implementation, bringing consistency in design across modules and features by putting common rules in one place. That enables developers to derive detailed behavior from the model without constant clarification. This consistency across communication, documents, and code reduces complexity both in the software and the process of building it. Therefore, from my perspective, every non-trivial software project clearly benefits from a domain model explicitly defining the domain objects, their names, purpose, relationships, and the central business rules before diving into features. In small systems, one focused session and a simple diagram may be enough. In larger systems, we follow a more structured approach. We start with a glossary. We capture the terms domain experts use in a simple document. We also note synonyms and a short description for each term relevant in the context of our software. Then we move to the whiteboard. We turn key nouns from the glossary into boxes. These are our objects. We place objects that are often used together near each other. We may also discover subdomains. Let's circle them and name them. We may also identify objects that are central to many subdomains and place them centrally. Be aware of roles. The same real-world thing can play different roles. Like a person on YouTube can be a viewer, a creator, and even a customer. Use separate boxes when the role matters. Now it's time to add the properties of the objects. We start with the obvious ones for each, and then discuss and refine the details. Also think about which properties form the identity of a domain object. Once the objects are completed, we continue with their relationships by drawing edges. It is also helpful to add verbs to the edges, like uses, extends, or owns, to describe the kind of relationship. We also add cardinality to each edge. As mentioned, a domain model is not only data, it also captures behavior. We start with the invariants for each object by adding a short note next to the box. We continue with cross-object rules. For example, an update in one object may invalidate or propagate to another. We add another note close to these objects. We finish by sketching the key workflows rooted in the domain with boxes and arrows. We keep all nodes brief and focused. The details live in the requirements. Let's talk about iterations and completeness. The domain model is the heart of the system, so changes to it will ripple widely. Therefore, we try to avoid constant churn by thinking a few steps ahead. For example, if we already know a relationship will become one-to-many in the next iteration, we model it that way right from the beginning. However, incrementally extending the domain model as our understanding grows is usually feasible and even necessary, for example by adding subdomains. Now, the diagram alone is already helpful, but to get the full value of a domain model, it must be the backbone of the design. To achieve this, we simply turn all boxes from the diagram into classes. Of course, we use the exact same names from the model. Before skipping or adding any properties, we discuss and decide whether the model or the implementation needs to change. It's also good practice to add the respective glossary description as class AP documentation. But how do we keep the diagram and the code in sync? There are tools that can generate classes from diagrams and vice versa, but so far I haven't found any tool I'm happy with. So I prefer maintaining both separately, making it a responsibility of the architect to keep them in sync. Next, we move on to implementing the behavior of the model. Object invariants are best enforced using design by contract. Simple business rules and cross-domain objects interactions we implement by adding methods to the respective domain objects. More complex workflows involving many domain objects are best implemented in separate domain classes, often called domain services. Now, when it comes to implementing the relationships between domain objects, we have to think about coupling. In diagrams, we can simply draw a line and add cardinality. In code, we must choose a direction and decide about the coupling it creates. For example, more central domain objects should probably not refer to specific ones, for example from subdomains, but rather the other way around. Let's wrap up with practical tips to avoid common pitfalls. Number 1. I have rarely seen domain models driven entirely by domain experts. So as software engineers, we may have to drive their creation, but never do it without the domain experts. Number 2. Stay in the problem space and use the natural language of the domain. Avoid technical terms and implementation details. If a term isn't used by non-technical stakeholders, it's probably solution space and doesn't belong in the domain model. Number 3. Do not create a generic model covering the entire real world. Model your domain, your context. Number 4. Avoid one big model for everything. Be specific to subdomains and only generalize when there's a clear benefit. Speaking of software complexity, did you know that essential, accidental, and incidental complexities all have different causes? No? Then check out this video.